Good evening and welcome to Scotland at 7 with me, Sam Paton. And this evening I am joined once again by the lovely Siobhan Tolland. Hello Siobhan, how are you doing?
Not too bad, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'll come back to you in a wee minute once we've done the coronavirus update and we'll have a blether. But first of all, to bring you the latest on the coronavirus. As of 2 p.m. today, a total of 6,953 people in Scotland have been tested through NHS Scotland labs and UK government regional testing centres since the start of the pandemic. Of these, 1,774,610 have been confirmed as negative. 232,343 have tested positive. There are 313 new cases of COVID-19 confirmed by a test. Although not everyone with the virus will display symptoms and not all those with symptoms will be tested. There have been no reported deaths of people today who have been tested positive. The number of patients in Scotland who have died from complications caused by the coronavirus infection now stands at 7,664. The number only includes those who have died having received a positive test for the virus in the previous 28 days. Excuse me. Of the people who have tested positive, 94 are in hospital last night, 5 of whom were in intensive care. As of 8 a.m. this morning, 3,121,945 people have received their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccination and 1,852,179 have received their second dose. The latest UK daily figures show 127,724 patients who have tested positive for COVID-19 have sadly died from their illness, an increase of 3 since yesterday. This number refers to deaths in all settings and not just hospitals. And as always, our condolences and thoughts are with family and loved ones. And for those who are in intensive care this evening, I hope you get well and I wish you a speedy recovery. Now for the first story of this evening. The UK planes told to cease flying over Belarus following the state hijacking Ryanair plane and detention of journalist Roman Protasevich. Sorry if I have mispronounced that. Roman Protasevich. There we go. There has been international condemnation of the Belarus government after it illegally intercepted a Ryanair plane en route from Athens to Vilnius yesterday. Belarus authorities used the pretext of a security risk to force the plane to land in Minsk so they could detain journalist and pro-democracy Roman Protasevich and on a false terrorism charges. The UK Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab issued a notice to all UK planes to cease flying over Belarus and suspend the UK operating licence for Belivia, the Belarusian state-owned airline. Mr Raab also said the UK planned to raise the issue at the UN Security Council, the G7 World Leaders Summit and the International Civil Aviation Organisation. Ryanair said the Belarusian flight controllers told the pilots there was a bomb threat against the jet and ordered them to land in Minsk. Dominic Raab said the UK had seen no evidence to support the claim of a bomb threat. Ryanair's chief executive, Michael O'Leary, said he believed agents of the Belarusian KGB were travelling on the plane in the first official confirmation of reports that 4 other passengers had disembarked in Minsk after the emergency landing, driving speculation that Protasevich was being shadowed by the security service. Joseph Borrell, The EU's High Representative for Foreign Affairs called on for international investigation into the incident and warned that those involved faced sanctions. The US Secretary of State Antony Blinken tweeted, "We strongly condemn the Lukashenko regime brazen and shocking act to divert a commercial flight and arrest a journalist. We are demand an international investigation and coordinating with our partners on the next steps. The United States stands with the people of Belarus." Now, Siobhan, no doubt I'm going to surmise that you've been keeping up to date just the same way I have been over the last 24 hours on this one. This is actually quite terrifying that they could turn around and come up with this fantasy story of a bomb threat on the plane, especially in this day and age, and get the plane to stop to arrest a journalist. And, you know, it's absolutely terrifying. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it really is breaking international boundaries of behaviour, isn't it? I mean, you know, we talked a lot about democracy being fragile, and this is an opposition journalist or blogger with 2 million viewers actually, as I noticed, very popular in his opposition to Litvinenko, if that's somehow pronouncing it. But it's bad enough, I think, arresting somebody, you know, for that. But to actually manipulate a scenario and a situation where you have to bring down a plane, it really is quite shocking. And yeah, it is quite terrifying, because what you've got is this: no journalist or no blogger or no opposition would be safe in that scenario, because we don't know. Now, if we're told there's a bomb on a plane, you can't just go, well, it could just be, you know, could just be that you're mucking about there, type of thing. But what we've got is a situation where basically a flight was manipulated into coming down, and then an arrest happened. That has massive implications, I think, for free journalism, not just in Belarus, but across the globe as well, because if that's allowed to happen, if that is not condemned or punished in some way, then we do allow that to happen in other circumstances. And where does it stop? And I think that's what's shocking about it, is that internationally there are, for want of a better word, standards of behaviour that you just do and you don't do, and that has broken that quite significantly, I think. So it does have massive ramifications, and as journalists, as Democrats, as advocates of free speech, yeah, we probably should be all outraged at that. So it'll be interesting to see how the international community deal with this.
Yeah, because one of the things I was listening in on this afternoon was the Westminster, and they were talking about this, and one of the things that came up was the pipeline that runs through Belarus, and the fact that Lukashenko cozies up with the Russians, or is believed to cozy up with the Russians, which is also quite worrying as well. So, I would imagine this would be an embarrassment to Putin, because at the end of the day, commercial flights are normally a no-go zone when it comes to international conflicts or indiscretions, so to speak. And there was normal civilians on that flight, and I would imagine, I don't know the full makeup of the passengers in terms of they've, you know, right. I'm just hearing that right, we're just getting told Protasevich is in critical condition in hospital in Minsk, and this is coming through Twitter and media sources at the moment. So that's quite concerning, because if he was removed from that plane healthy, and he's been taken into, you know, custody by the security, whether it's been the police authorities or security forces, that is actually very concerning in terms of people, civilian safety. And as you said, that's freedom of speech. That's international, you know, journalism. Oh dear, right, I'm just getting told there. Sorry I went silent, I was just listening in there. Protasenko's mum has said that he's been found in, sorry, Protasevic's mum has reported that he's in hospital with serious heart condition. So that's quite concerning as to what's happened to him since he's been removed from that plane. So
So,
So they're saying he's in custody, but his mum's saying he's in hospital. So what do you think the implications are going to be? That because obviously somebody's lying somewhere, and I'm going to more believe his mum than anything that he's in hospital. And I mean, it's how's the international community going to respond to this as well?
well, I mean, I think that, Twitter is, good journalism. We need another 3 verified sources there. So at this moment in time, we are just kind of dealing with a bit of rumour and bits and bobs of information. So we do need to kind of just maybe be slightly careful there. I mean, if that's true, then it does push us into an even kind of bigger breaking of these boundaries, doesn't it? It really puts, it really puts pressure on the international community to do something here. It's quite a kind of it's a terrifying prospect in and of itself that a man was arrested or a journalist was arrested. But if it's true that he's in hospital with heart conditions, then we really have to treat that with a bit of suspicion. But it is only a big if at that moment in time. I know that the tweet said it was from his mum, but we all know that social media can do good fakes.
It's Hannah Ligerkova, who is a journalist who has Nibakova, who's actually tweeted it. So, and who's a
Yeah.
journalist. So but obviously we'll be looking to confirm that. But Ukraine has also suspended flights over Belarus at the moment. So
Yeah.
there'll be
So
and to Belarus. So I mean, it shows that the international community is responding
yeah.
to this situation as we go on, which is quite a scary kind of situation to be in right now. I'm going to move on to the back home for our next story, Siobhan. Scotland did not vote for cruel immigration policies and dawn raids, say the SNP. SNP MP Anne McLaughlin has hit back at Priti Patel over comments that the British public voted for ramping up immigration raids, saying Scotland absolutely did not vote for immigration raids or for a Tory government. The comments follow the Home Secretary's announcement to punish asylum seekers who arrive in the UK via irregular routes, as the overwhelming majority of people fleeing persecution do. Under the proposals, people who enter the UK via irregular routes seeking asylum won't have the same entitlements as those who arrive through official channels, such as resettlement schemes. The UN has condemned these plans. Priti Patel also outlined her plans to stop the use of ID cards year, the same year in which the status scheme ends, failed to give further details on how this would be carried out. A large proportion of EU citizens use ID cards, which means they could face further challenges in proving their rights here in the UK. The Home Secretary also said that immigration system is broken, ignoring the fact that her own party has been in government for 11 years. The SNP's immigration spokesperson, Anne McLaughlin MP, said that these comments from the Home Secretary show, once again, just how out of touch the Tory government is with the people of Scotland. Scotland absolutely did not vote for these cruel immigration raids or any of the other toxic Tory migration policies, nor did we vote for the Tory government or their hard Brexit that is making the UK more isolationist as the weeks go on. Now, Siobhan, I had seen this just before I came on here. about the comments made from Priti Patel, and basically, Scotland did not vote for, these raids. That this is something we just did not vote for, something we do not want to see in our country. But however, I just find Priti Patel just a disgusting human being. Even just watching her, she's absolutely disgusting. What do you make of Priti Patel's comments?
I think there's a couple of issues here, isn't it? And the first thing is that the new immigration plans are cruel. They are, and we spoke about this last week as well, they are absolutely dehumanising. The thought of just sending these people back like they're Amazon, packages is really quite shocking, and it's not a surprise that the UK are becoming more isolated within the European Union because of that. I mean, the whole point of Brexit was for the UK to do what they want, regardless of, and it comes back down to these boundaries of behaviour, to do what they want and not be bound by the boundaries of behaviour that the European Union set, and that kind of immigration settlement was part of it as well. They didn't want the European Union to interfere with what their immigration policy wanted to do. So from a UK perspective, why would they care about what Scotland wanted? And this is the point, isn't it? It's like, if they don't want the European Union dictating terms to them on their immigration policy, they're certainly not going to care about Scotland. But you're absolutely right. We have never voted for that in 50 odd years. Never voted for that, and I don't think we ever will. And it really is, it's shocking on so many levels, the absolute inhumanity of this. It's just the end game of many years of this increasing jingoistic and increasingly racist immigration policy that the UK have. It's not what Scotland wants. And again, it keeps coming back to it's two very, very divergent paths now that Scotland is on. I think if you look at Kenmare Street, what happened in Glasgow a few weeks ago, and how people kind of rose to protect these asylum seekers, then you will see the difference. I'm not saying that's the whole of Scotland, but I think it was very symptomatic and very symbolic of a Scotland that's beginning to develop, certainly away from a UK inhumane structure. I mean, Priti Patel is, it's kind of scary, actually. There really is this kind of very cold-hearted, dehumanising force there, I think, within Westminster and within that Home Office. And it really is something that Scotland really needs to get away from. And I think I said that on the last show as well. Absolute control of our immigration policy now would make an enormous contribution to the humanity that I think that Scotland's trying to build and as a modern Scotland.
Definitely. And I know on Thursday I was equally as proud because the immigration vans were seen again. One was seen in Paisley and one was seen in Drumchapel, and right away people started to come out onto the street, and they didn't stay. And because obviously Scotland's actually, when it comes to this is something we don't want, and this is something we are willing to rise and stand up against, that it's not happening in our streets of Scotland. And this, what I believe, I don't know what you think of this, is what the UK government is scared of, scared at the fact here in Scotland, and an immigration policy, being very visual about it, and we are saying no, this is happening on the street. And to see Priti Patel on Thursday going around with the immigration force and actually going with them while they're removing people from their homes, I don't know what you thought about that. I thought it was very callous, very cold-hearted. There was something kind of, I don't know, very fascist about it, especially the way she was standing there with her Home Secretary coat on. I'm not sure what you thought of the pictures that were going around social media of her standing there kind of smirking as she was seeing people being removed, detained.
I mean, if I'm honest, I did see a tweet saying that it wasn't an immigration raid, and I didn't actually have time to look up the authenticity of those tweets. But I think that what you've got in Scotland really is a community driven and a community grounded action to protect people. And as a kind of historian, I think the historical parallels are the means tests of the 1930s, which was a massively important moment in the kind of, I suppose, the early days of a kind of 1930s austerity agenda, where the community gathered together and organised in order to protect people from unfair means tests. It's different people, different reasons, but it's the same type of structure where people can just go in and do. The state wanders in and does exactly what they want, regardless of the consequences, to frail and vulnerable human beings. And I think it's that humanity that begins to come in. And I think that historically, that's probably going to be one of the moments that we read about when kids are growing up and wondering about how we become independent. It's going to be one of these moments that they're going to read in the history books and say, look what happened and look at the difference there. I do think it's quite a pivotal moment in how we kind of move forward now. No one wants a country run by Priti Patel.
No, definitely not. That's terrifying. Oh my goodness, that's terrifying. Could you imagine that one? Oh, no, I don't know what you imagine.
There you go, the biggest cause for independence we've got.
Yeah, there we go, folks. If you're not careful and we don't start supporting getting behind independence, we may have Priti Patel running the country.
It's independence or Prita.
Maybe that should be the new campaign strategy. Yeah. Now on to Siobhan's next favourite MP or politician, Douglas Ross.
Ross.
I'm sorry. Ever since I've heard that one, I keep calling him Murray Ross. So my apologies to the viewers, but for taking the out of our lovely. I'm not even going to put that in the same sentence, but never mind. Douglas Ross challenged to keep his promise to Scotland's farmers. I can't even believe I was going to mention him and lovely in the same sentence there. That was a bit of a kind of age moment, I think. The SNP has said that Douglas Ross faces a big test of his promise to stand up for Scotland's farmers every single time in the face of a Tory trade deal with Australia, which would see Scotland's beef and lamb farmers undercut, threatening their future. Writing in the Scottish Farmer magazine in September 2020, the Scottish Tory leader penned an open letter to Scotland's farmers promising that he would stand up for them on a bigger platform. However, he has been silent in the face of the proposals in the Tories' trade deal with Australia that would see Scotland's farmers undercut as part of a zero-tariff deal for imports to the UK. Last week, President of the NFU Scotland, Martin Kennedy, told Good Morning Britain that farmers feel a total betrayal. He was joined by the NFU President, Minette Batters, who said the zero-tariff proposals would be unbearable. The SNP MSP for Perthshire, South and Kinrossshire and former sheep farmer Jim Farley said that Douglas Ross had made this promise to Scotland's farmers just 8 months ago and wrote to farmers in Mr Farley's constituency promising to be their champion. This is a big test for that promise as farmers face the prospect of being undercut by beef and lamb imported tariff-free from Australia. Mr Farley said that there will be severe consequences for Scotland's farmers if this deal goes ahead, as it could push them out of business and that would be a complete betrayal of the industry. Now, Douglas Ross keeping a promise, I don't see it. He's a Tory, and as I've always been told, never trust a Tory. Surely the Scottish farmers should have kind of seen this one coming after what's happened with the fishermen and all the other industries in Scotland. under all the other promises that the Tories have made. But I can understand maybe they kind of hoped that if they voted for them, that they would be protected. I'm trying to see two sides for this argument, Siobhan, and it's not working. Why did the farmers trust Douglas Ross? I mean, come on. The man is... I've no words.
Well, I mean, I think that, you know, I always feel a bit uncomfortable when we kind of do a bit like that, and we all do it to a greater or less degree, and I'm kind of taking myself into that equation as well. But you know, so I think sometimes groups of people think that they are the exception, and that
Yes.
it's like the gossip in the work. When they come in and gossip to you about somebody else, you kind of, you know, you feel included, and then you think at the back of your head, it's like, I bet you they're gossiping about me behind my back as well. You know, it's that kind of thing. It's like, there's a kind of dual thing there. But I think the union's at stake here. The Guardian reported just the other day that unionists are worried about this. They're worried about this in case the farmers in Scotland begin to go, oh, sugar, we might be better off being independent now, because this is the kind of problem that we've got. You've got, I mean, they've got this absolutely ridiculous scheme where they're going to import beef and lamb from Australia, which is hormone injected and practices cruel animal welfare practices, ships it halfway across the world for import, when we've got our own beef and lamb right here in Scotland, which has a reputation for high quality, good food. And that's the important thing as well. It's not just the farmers' fates here, it is the brand of Scotland as a food export and a food providing nation as well that's also at stake. So there's a lot going on there. So even the farmers that are lucky enough to scrape an existence out after this deal, the reputation of their meat, the reputation of what they're growing will fall down as a result of that, because we're going to end up mixing this kind of, you know, hormone injected beef and lamb with other stuff, with the homegrown stuff as well. It really is quite a good, and I think that it shows you it's always been with Brexit is they don't care about the consequences. Westminster's never really cared about the consequences beyond getting Brexit done, and here they are yet again sacrificing actually a big support base. You know, how absolutely ridiculous is it? They're sacrificing their own support base in order to get a post-Brexit deal. And again, it's risking the union. I mean, I would want to say bring it on, but if it didn't cause so much suffering, you know, or the consequences of it would be so much suffering. But it is just another example. I mean, I kind of feel for the farmers now, actually. I know that there's a tendency for them to side with the Conservatives and stuff like that. But there really is and it shows you, I think, how mass the betrayal and how deep the betrayal is there. And it will be interesting to see if we had any strategy at this moment in time for independence. We'd be going in there saying, do you know what? Guess what we can do when we're independent?
Yeah.
And this is all about what's the risk now between being part of a post-Brexit union and part of an independent Scotland? What's the bigger risk for farmers now? Because if I was a farmer, I really, really would not like this. Wholly irresponsible, did Minette Batters, the National Farmers Union president, say. Wholly irresponsible. That's what she said about the deal. So when you're getting language like that from the National Farmers Union about a Conservative government doing a post-Brexit deal, then I think they might be in a bit of trouble. But do you know what? Here's the thing. They don't care. I honestly don't think Westminster care.
They don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care, and that'll be why Douglas Ross is staying very silent on this. Yes. But another side of the coin,
I never even got to that.
Also, the other side of the coin also as well is we're in the middle of a climate crisis, and they're talking about exporting food from halfway across the world. And so the carbon footprint on that, especially when we have COP26 later on this year, it's a bit contradictory, don't you think?
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's not. And I think I can't remember the guy's name, but he's the owner of the Iceland food chain, and he was saying it on Question Time
Yes.
the other week. He says, "Yeah, it's cheap in Australia, but by the time you ship it across the here, it's not going to be. It's not really going to be that cheap. So we're not, you know what I mean. So there's a whole host of kind of bad issues. This is exactly what we thought was going to happen with a post-Brexit deal. We would sacrifice our own granny for a trade deal, which is going to be
Yeah.
of terrible consequences to us. Yes, and that's not even putting aside the ecological impact on that. Douglas Ross, well, come on, I think that just shows really that there is no backbone to a Scottish Conservative Party, that it's constantly at the behest of a Westminster government.
Definitely. I don't think I could have said it any better myself. Siobhan, now to our next story of the evening. Scottish Government acing legal challenges to investigate Donald Trump's cash purchase of golf courses. Oh, sorry, facing legal challenges. Sorry, I've got a typo in my script here. Monday. It's a Monday. It's a Monday. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. It's a Monday. AVES, a global human rights group, has filed a petition in Scotland's highest civil court seeking a judicial review of the Scottish Government's decision not to purchase an unexplained wealth order on Donald Trump's business. Oh, crikey, it definitely is Monday. An unexplained wealth order on Donald Trump's business. In February, Parliament voted 89-32 against the motion, which was brought by the Scottish Greens and would have sought details on the source of money the Trump organisation used to buy the courses in 2006 and 2014. The AVES petition was served on the Scottish Government today. AVAS. After decades of buying properties with debt, ex-President Trump spent more than $300 million in cash purchasing and developing the mini estate and Turnberry golf courses, neither of which has turned a profit. Some MSPs have cited mounting investigations into Trump's US financial interests as grounds to scrutinise his business dealings in Scotland. The 13-page petition filed by AVAS alleges that the politicians who voted against the motion did so based on a flawed legal interpretation, such as continued misapplication of the law would be contrary to the rule of law, it said. The Scottish Parliament rejected the motion seeking the order on February the 3rd. Before the vote, Humza Yousaf, the then Justice Minister, called Trump deplorable, but argued that unexplained wealth orders should be instigated by law enforcement officials rather than the politicians. There must not be political interference in the enforcement of law, said Mr. Yousaf. Humza Yousaf said that the Civil Recovery Unit, an enforcement authority reporting to Scotland's most senior legal officer, the Lord Advocate, should undertake the investigatory role. Now, Siobhan, this is, I don't know, I mean, at the moment, Donald Trump seems to be investigated now everywhere now. Everything he's done, even before his presidency, is getting looked into. And I mean, Mr. Yousaf's obviously, I think he's correct in saying that certain things need to be left to law enforcement rather than the politicians. You've got to allow law enforcement to do their job and, to kind of investigate and things. What's your feelings on this? The fact that they're going to be the Scottish Government's facing legal challenge to investigate Donald Trump's cash purchases of the golf courses in Scotland. Do you see that as a good thing, that lessons could be learned, or do you think it should be left to the law enforcement?
Well, is the law enforcement investigating it? I mean, that's the question maybe that we need to ask. I mean, to be fair, in February there was not, the New York investigation only recently turned into a criminal investigation.
Yes.
I think that was only 5 days ago or so, but at first it was a civil investigation. Now that it's turned criminal into a criminal investigation, then maybe we'll have a kind of slightly different take on this, I think. Is the Scottish criminal system investigating it? I don't know, because it's one thing saying in Parliament, and I like Humzan, I like, obviously, big fan of the SNP and stuff, but it's one thing saying, well, there needs to be an investigation, but a criminal investigation, but is there a criminal investigation? That's what I want to know. I think good on Avaz for doing it. Just to kind of clarify, Avaz is a global, international kind of grassroots community-based organisation that tries to fight corruption, anti-poverty, etc., etc. So do you know what? Good on them for trying. If that's not the case, and if it's not the remit of the Scottish Parliament or the Scottish Government, then fair enough, but maybe that needs to be teased out, and maybe that's something that needs to be done a bit more across the board. If it wants a criminal investigation, then we should be investigating it. I mean, the corruption, for Donald Trump, it's kind of far and deep, isn't it? But basically, he was kind of inflating the value of his assets to get loans, but actually deflating in order to kind of avoid tax. Allegedly. So we have a situation where, kind of Trump's fingers are in a lot of alleged corrupt pies. Scotland, unfortunately, for better or worse, could be part of that or subject to that. I don't think anybody would say that Scotland or the Scottish Government were willing partners in that, but we could have been subject to that type of. We could have been another
that
one of those assets.
Victims, alleged victims of his alleged business dealings.
We were happy enough to take his money, though. I think that it struck me, though, that when we were looking, I mean, Donald Trump, and I thought this all along from the start, is that Donald Trump was using Scotland as just another asset. A country as an asset rather than one of his big international hotels and stuff. I think that is almost even clearer now as this kind of gets a bit murkier, that literally we were just seen as an asset to move money around in, what it's looking like, allegedly. So it's an interesting one. But do you know what? Good on Avaz for trying that, and we'll see how that goes. It might change everything now that there is a criminal investigation.
Yeah, because the thing is, when they were talking about it back in February, it was a civil investigation. It wasn't criminal.
Yes.
And now it is criminal. That does change how the law works. It changes a lot of things, and it changes the legal advice that's coming out as well. And it'll be interesting to see how this pans out in America and with now what's happening in Scotland. And not forgetting, Donald Trump had business dealings in other countries as well. So it may be that this will be happening in other countries as well as time goes on. So it'll be interesting to see if Avaz are working
in any other. Yeah,
it'll definitely be keeping an eye on that one. Now, to our next story. Police say 2 dead and 12 injured in a New Jersey shooting at a residential party. 2 people were killed and 12 people were hurt in a shooting at a party in New Jersey on Saturday, state police said today. The New Jersey state police investigating a fatal shooting that killed a man and a woman and injured 12 others at a residential party in Cumberland County, according to New Jersey State Police news release. The police said a man, 30, and a woman of 25 were killed and injured. The injured were sent to hospitals and one of the wounded was in a critical condition. The shooting occurred at a home near Bridgeton, New Jersey, just before midnight on Saturday, police said. More than 100 people were attending the birthday party, which was a 1990s themed event, according to ABC News. No arrests have been made as of Sunday morning, and the motive for the incident remained under investigation, according to police. Siobhan, this is just heartbreaking. People are going to a party and then there is a shooting. People are killed. People are seriously injured. and one person critically injured. Not to mention the people that have witnessed this, they would be traumatised. This is just, it's unthinkable to think that on a Saturday night you go out to enjoy yourself, have a couple of drinks with a few friends, and then something like this happens.
Yeah.
It's just heartbreaking.
I mean, thoughts to the two that have died and their families, and the other 12. Hopefully, they will recover. It's difficult, isn't it? Because we don't know what happened. We don't know how it came about. And we're all kind of just filling in the blanks at this stage. But I'm assuming that there were, to kind of, to take a gun out at a party just seems utterly awful, horrific, actually. That something, like you say, something that's meant to be a happy event turns into something so terrible and so awful. It really is. I think that it's just another example of, God, do we need gun control in America? This is just an example. If we don't know the circumstances, but this is kind of a night out that's turned violent. Now, a lot of nights out turn violent, and we get people ending up getting stabbed, or but it would never end up in a shooting here in the UK, and it would never end up with that kind of level of injury. It's that process of the guns, isn't it? I just hate the fact that we can, like the US, can just arm themselves so easily to such horrific events like this. I mean, I know that Biden is looking into the gun licensing law again, and I think that this is maybe something good will come from this, that it will initiate people to take more control over the gun law and actually build a safer environment. You remember in New Zealand when the terrorist attack on the Muslim community happened, and the first thing that the New Zealand government did was actually kind of pass a law for gun control. That kind of decisive action would be wonderful.
Yes.
Unlikely in the US given its history, but something like that, it would be something good coming from such a tragic circumstance.
Definitely, and we keep hearing these stories coming out of America all the time, and they're heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. And staying with America for our next story, Mississippi's Pink House becomes focus of the US abortion battle. Mississippi's only abortion clinic, the Jackson Women's Health Organization's future is being threatened after the US Supreme Court thrust the clinic's noisy city block into the centre of the country's contentious debate over abortion rights. Today, the Supreme Court agreed to review Mississippi's bid to ban most abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy, a Republican-backed direct challenge to the landmark in the 1973 Roe v. Wade ruling that legalised abortion across America. The court's new 6-3 Conservative majority, which was not expected to rule on the case until next year, could decide to weaken or overturn that ruling, which established a woman's right to terminate a pregnancy before the fetus is deemed to be viable, usually between 24 and 28 weeks. The Jackson Women's Health Organization, known locally as the Pink House because of its bubblegum-coloured paint, is named in the case. Mississippi is one of the 6 states with a single abortion clinic. It is also one of about 10 states with trigger laws that would effectively ban abortion outright without Roe v. Wade, according to the Guttmacher Institute, which supports abortion rights. 3 others border Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana and Tennessee, meaning an overturn of Roe could eliminate legal abortion access for millions of women in the US South. We were talking about this last week, Siobhan,
Yeah.
talking about this very case, actually, and that's still ongoing. And now the Pink House, sorry, I'm being told it was the Texas one last week, but it was a very, very similar about women's rights, about abortion rights, and how, the 1973 Roe versus Wade could possibly be overturned, making it so much difficult for women to access abortions. It's just unbelievable. Again, it's taken away women's rights to decide.
Yeah, I mean, if you even given what you were saying, it's like Mississippi's one of 6 states with only one abortion clinic, and it's got 10 states with trigger laws. And what that means, of course, is like, if Roe versus Wade is weakened or overturned, then they will immediately kind of ban abortion. So that's like potentially 16 states that we're just talking about right now out of 50 that would effectively begin to look at banning abortion. Mississippi has had kind of a bit of a history of just constantly chipping away at abortion rights. And one of the things I discovered when I was doing a bit of research here is that actually Medicaid doesn't cover most cases of abortion. So what you've got is a situation where the poorer people are not getting access to abortion. It's always the poorer people that suffer, isn't it? Kind of thing. And it's one of those things as well where it's actually more difficult to have a kid in poverty-stricken situations. So there really is a kind of class element to this as well as there being a gendered one too, because women's right to choose should be sacrosanct. But a poor woman's right, and taking away that right and taking away even just the concept of getting funding for an abortion is bad enough in itself before they've got to the potential outright ban. It is a deeply serious thing, I think, that's going on in the US at this moment in time. It really is quite scary. It's not a good time, as my Louisiana friend says, it's not a good time to be a woman in the US at this moment in time. And I think that it's examples like this that begin to show us how exactly that is. It's unthinkable that we're even having to revisit the fundamental Roe versus Wade of 1970. It's absolutely unthinkable that we have to start thinking, oh my God, the US might lose this now, because it was a fundamental cornerstone of women's rights. 1973, if you think about it, it was at the height of the women's rights agenda, the black rights agenda. It was the height of that. It was a result of the hard work that women did at that point in time in order to secure these rights, and it's getting stripped away. It really is really quite sad.
Yeah, and it's quite scary as well, because it feels as if they're going backwards instead of progressing forwards. Yeah, right. Now you're back home to Scotland. Health Secretary receives first vaccination. Speaking after receiving his first dose of the coronavirus vaccination at the Caird Hall in Dundee, Cabinet Secretary for Health Humza Yousaf said he was delighted to have received his first vaccination and would like to thank all the staff at NHS Tayside and throughout Scotland for all their efforts in ensuring the success of the rollout. I was very pleased to be able to meet some of the local staff who have been involved in delivering the vaccination programme here in Dundee, and was particularly glad to be here on the day the programme in NHS Tayside reaches a total of 400,000 doses, said the Health Secretary, adding that today is also the day the Scottish Government begins inviting 18 to 29-year-olds to self-register for COVID-19 vaccine by going online at www.nhsinform.scot/under30 register or calling 0800 030 8013 before Friday the 4th of June to get their vaccine appointment details sent to them by email or text. Those who don't register in this way will still be sent their appointment details by letter. Now, I'm assuming, Siobhan, without being too rude, you've had your doses, 2 doses of your vaccine?
Yes, I was shielding, so I was on the first list. Yeah, okay.
Oh, fantastic. And
Yeah.
how were you feeling after getting your vaccine? Were you okay? Did you have any symptoms? Because some people have been saying they've been feeling a bit yucky afterwards.
After the first one, yes, definitely. Felt like, temperature and just exhausted. Second one felt a little bit hungover. It was actually the morning of the election the next day. But yeah,
Oh
that was fine. Yes, it was fine. The second dose was absolutely fine. I think that on a psychological level, it really has made a massive impact. I think I said that last time I was driving around the other
no!
day, and
Yes,
it
you
was like,
did.
oh my God,
Yeah.
this is what it feels like. This is great. So there is that kind of element of it. It's great. The vaccination program is great, and but as a word of caution, I was watching the interview with an epidemiologist, I think it was, on Channel 4 last night, talking about the Public Health England report that for the Indian variant, we have very good protection after the second dose, but only after the first dose, we've only got 30% protection. So we still need to be very, very careful with the Indian variant that is beginning to take hold within Scotland as well. So please, if you're only on the first dose at this moment in time, extra caution, because this variant, of course, is considered to be much more infectious than even the Kent variant as well. It seems to be in younger kids as well, kids about my son's age, kind of first year, and they're kind of taking it and then spreading it as well, which makes sense. It's the evolution of a virus. Of course, it would go to younger people because most older are now vaccinated. But please do be careful if anybody's watching. We don't have much immunity after just the first dose with this Indian variant, so we still need to be extraordinarily cautious at this moment in time.
Definitely, and also as well, if you haven't done so, you can get your self-testing kits, which come in quite handy, especially if you haven't had your vaccine or you've just had your first one. And I use them, and they're quite simple to use, and you can test yourself and make sure you're okay. But yeah, I agree with Siobhan, be very careful. Now, for our next story, the call on the UK government to bring in paid miscarriage leave. SNP MP Angela Crawley has called on the UK government to change the law to ensure those who experience a miscarriage are given at least 3 days paid leave. In a cross-party letter to the Prime Minister, the MP for Lanark and Hamilton East highlights that around 1 in 8 pregnancies will end in miscarriage, meaning thousands of women and men are suffering profound loss without adequate time to grieve. The SNP 2021 manifesto said the party will bring in a new women's health plan that will establish a dignified, compassionate miscarriage service tailored to the needs of women and emulate New Zealand, where families who experience miscarriage or stillbirth are entitled to 3 days of paid leave. To do that, the UK government must change employment law, which is reserved. Now, Siobhan, I definitely think that should be done, because miscarriage is the most heartbreaking. It's so heartbreaking, it is so sad, it is so traumatic, it's very emotional, and men and women do need time to grieve and not worry about having to go to work. And I know some places you can phone in sick and just say you're sick, and there's some employers out there that are really compassionate and really good, but unfortunately there's the employers out there who just basically want you to get into work and carry on as normal. I'm going to assume once again, you totally agree we should have paid leave. I would like to see more than 3 days. I would like to see at least a week for couples to give them some headspace.
I think that the paper that Lancet brought out and done by the kind of Tommy Foundation does note I think quite a few interesting things, and it was them that was calling for following the New Zealand lead. It's not just about, forcing, making employers give that, because I think that that's what's needed. It's about a public and institutional validation of the loss, I think, that
Yes.
women and families have experienced through that. So I think that the psychological impact
Yes.
of that leave, I think, will go a long way to helping the family recover. The Lancet paper talked about post-traumatic stress occurring in 18% of women for at least 9 months after the miscarriage.
Yeah.
I know a couple of people that have had miscarriages, and it is deeply, deeply traumatic for a lot of them, and male and female included. The father
Yes.
needs to be involved, and their pain needs to be recognised in that respect as well. So yes, it's given them space to recover physically as well as emotionally, but it's validating their experiences, and I think that goes a long way and to making up, to building just a much more caring society within that, and recognising that these women and these families' experiences are real and genuine, and they need to be they need space to grieve, and it should be a valid grief. And I do think that
Yes.
sometimes my friend talked about that actually when she had a miscarriage quite early on, and she was saying that there was that element of it wasn't felt like it should be a proper grief. I felt that when my best friend of
Yeah.
32 years left, that he wasn't a husband, he wasn't a member of family, but it was a grief just as deep.
Yeah.
And it's not quite felt to be accepted. And I do think that goes, this move goes some way to recognising that and accepting it and validating the family's grief. So will they do it? Well, this is a government that sends back vulnerable people. So probably not. But do you know what? Let's get employment law under our belt, and that'll be one of the first things we can do in the Scottish Parliament.
And the thing is, well, even as us as individuals, we can help people that have suffered from a miscarriage, and just letting them talk and allowing them to talk and validate their grief. Because one of the things what you were saying there about your friend, I know I was talking to a lady who said that she felt that it was still a taboo subject. So it would be nice just for people to kind of talk more about it and allow people to talk. Now for the last story of the evening, a wee bit of good news here. A blind man has sight partially restored after pioneering treatment. A blind man has had his sight partially restored after a form of gene therapy that uses pulses of light to control the activity of nerve cells. The first successful demonstration of so-called optogenetic therapy in humans. The 58-year-old man from Brittany in northern France was said to be very excited after regaining the ability to recognise, count, locate and touch different objects with the treated eye while wearing a pair of light-stimulating goggles. Having lost his sight after diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa almost 40 years ago, the breakthrough marked an important step towards the more widespread use of optogenetics as a clinical treatment. It involves modifying nerve cells, neurons, so that they fire electrical signals when they are exposed to certain wavelengths of light, equipping neuroscientists with the power to precisely control neural signalling within the brain and elsewhere. The new technique aims to restore visual function at the late stages of the disease by injecting a harmless virus that has been modified to carry the genetic instructions for making a light-responsive algal protein into the eye. These instructions are inserted into the specific eye cells called retinal ganglion cells by bypassing the damaged retinal cells and allowing visual information to be transmitted to the brain. Then the modified cells are exposed to light. The light is delivered into the patient's eye using goggles that capture images from the real world and transform them into pulses at specific wavelengths the gene therapy protein responds to in real time, enabling the man to see. This is absolutely amazing, Siobhan. It's amazing what science can do, and at times humans are amazing what we can come up with and what we um, produce. We can be so innovative, and to think that we could restore someone's sight, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the science of it is really quite fascinating, actually. How
Yeah,
they kind of came about to do that. It really is, and good on the guy. If that's what he wants, to have his sight restored, that's great. It's great for him. Um, Always slightly uncomfortable in case we move to the other way, where it begins a kind of process of, we must cure everything, if that makes
yeah,
sense. I'm never particularly keen on that. I think
yeah.
we come in all shapes and sizes. But yes, it is a good news story. I just, the science of it just fascinates me. Just the fact that we could do that now, it's really quite remarkable.
It is, isn't it? It's absolutely fascinating, and it's great. Is if people are wanting that,
Yeah.
then the ability is there, because again, it's down to choice, and
Yes.
everybody has got the right
Exactly.
to choose. And some people maybe want to be cured, and some people may not want to be cured. So yeah, right. I've just been told that we have a video that has been issued by Roman Provorski, um, Protasevich, who has confessed in a video, and he's been treated correctly and lawfully. But in the meantime, the video shows that he's got bruises and has makeup on his forehead, all over his head. So that's actually quite interesting. I'm going to actually go and have a wee look at that when I come off here. Um,
Mm.
that's actually interesting. Right. Thank you very much, Siobhan. It's been a pleasure as always. I love when
Same
I've got
here.
Siobhan. It's great. We can have a right
Because I
laugh.
talk too
Uh,
much.
no, 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 no. I love the fact that you talk a lot. It's great to have someone who talks as much as me. I love it. I love it. We just don't have enough time.
Before we leave, I just want to make an important point about the vaccination and the lateral test. Even if we're double vaccinated, we still can spread the virus. So the lateral flow testing is still important for us all. It's not just about protecting ourselves, but it's about protecting the virus from, because we've been double vaccinated, we can get it. We might not know we've got it though, because our symptoms would be much, much milder. So it is, for the sake of everybody, we still need to keep doing the lateral test, and we're away to do that tonight.
Thank you, Siobhan.
Aye.
Thank you so much. The thing is, that is so important, and I do know that I test myself at least twice a week. So please, please, please keep yourself safe and keep everybody else safe. That's what it's about. And in the meantime, thank you very much for joining me here at Scotland at 7, and I hope you can join us tomorrow night at 7 o'clock again. And it'll be Gordon Ross. I've not spoke to Gordon for ages and ages and ages. I need to have a catch up with him at some point. So please tune in and hear what Gordon's got for you tomorrow. And in the meantime, thank you very much. And please carry on supporting us, and you can subscribe to the channel. The details are on the screen. And if you would like to join us and get involved as a volunteer, whether it's in front of camera, behind the scenes, doing a bit of journalism, get involved as well. Again, contact us. Information is on the screen. And you can also be part of our media team just by spreading the word. Share our tweets, share our Facebook page, and that helps us out a lot as well. So in the meantime, take care and stay safe.